The Indiana Fever win their second game without Caitlin Clark, and hopefully Caitlin Clark plays on Tuesday against the Atlanta Dream, which is kind of my original prediction when I said that she would be out for her injury. I figured that she was going to come back and play against the Atlanta Dream, which we know is always a great game, always a great showing, and it's a very competitive game. It's a real rivalry. Let's get that out the way. That's a real rivalry when we talk about the Indiana Fever. Who are they rivals? It's the Atlanta Dream. Each game is competitive. We got Ryan Howard, former number one overall pick. We got Caitlin Clark. We got Leah Boston. We got a lot of great players. That's a real rivalry. I don't want to hear anybody talk about the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever being a real rivalry anymore. It was cool last year for some marketing and a push. And we know all the eyes that Caitlin Clark brought on the game and also Angel Reese as well. But right now, it's not a rivalry. And it's really sad and pathetic because the Chicago Sky is one of the worst run organizations in all of sports right now. They're terrible, top to bottom. When we talk about leadership, when we talk about organization, when we talk about just everything that you think of a bad organization, that is what Chicago Sky is. And it all stemmed from historically, even after when Candace Parker won the championship with the Chicago Sky for her hometown, even though she was born in St. Louis, but she grew up in the state of Illinois. She talked about a lot of the issues with the Chicago Sky and that organization. So this should come no surprise that the Chicago Sky's organization is trash, is terrible. And that's why some people are saying, get Angel Reese up out of there. But the fact of the matter is, this team, when people talk about the Indiana Fever, they talk about Chicago Sky. The Commissioner's Cup was the first Commissioner's Cup game for both those teams. You just expect fireworks. You just expect on-court production. And I always said, when the off the court nonsense is bigger, is more talked about than the actual product on the basketball court, that's when you have a problem. That's when you have an issue. And that's why I was hoping going into this year when it came to Angel Reese, and I was hoping that she worked on her game. And I know people are going to point to her playing well in Unrivaled in the 3-on-3 league, and she was working with Lisa Leslie. But so far in her sophomore campaign, she has looked horrific. She's finishing 31% as her field goal percentage around the basket. Looks like she is one of the worst offensive players right now in the WNBA, and she's capable of so much more. And they're kind of playing her with Cardosa, and I guess she's playing the 4, Cardosa's playing the 5. It's just a terrible fit. And to be honest, both of them would look better without each other. Cardosa would look better without Angel Reese. Angel Reese will look better without Cardoso. I'm sorry. And that's just something that the Chicago Sky are eventually going to have to figure out. Who are we going to keep? Angel Reese, or we're going to keep Cardoso? Because Cardoso, to me, has a higher upside. She's going to be the better player, but Angel Reese is more of a better defensive player and also has a different engine and gear that Cardoso doesn't have. So you had to figure out what you're going to do with these two. And it makes sense if you're Chicago Sky, you want to keep on Angel Reese because of marketability. But the only problem is if the on-court production isn't matching the marketability, the off-court brand, nobody's going to care. And that's why I kept telling people, like, it's cool to have the podcast. It's cool to have the commercials. It's cool to have the merchandise. But people will switch up and people will not care because at the end of the day, you are a basketball player first. That's why I was saying, like, I don't believe any – I don't know, it just cut out. I don't believe any player should be having a podcast while they're in the early portions of their career. They're just not focused. They should be locked in the gym. They should be locked in on getting improvement. They should be locked in and improving on the basketball court. And people are on threads and they're saying that they feel like Angel Reese has lost her spark. How do you lose your spark coming off a historic season? And that's key. And that was one of my biggest concerns, even with Caitlin Clark coming into this year. It's like she had a historic rookie season. How's she going to come back and show? Because we know that sophomore slump is real in all sports. People can have a great rookie season, and that sophomore slump, they can not be as valuable as their rookie season because teams have figured out how to play you. Coaches get better, the scouting reports get better. All these great things happen. And then for us, Angel Reese, she is a big man, so she needs guards to actually get her the basketball. And Courtney Vansloo, unfortunately, 15-year career, she went down with a very serious injury. I don't think she's going to be back for the Chicago Sky or for the rest of the season. This year, but and then you're in Chicago Sky, you don't even attempt to fix or mend the relationship with Kennedy Carter. And that's when we talk about the political nonsense when it comes to the WNBA, because you let your best player walk for free. And regardless of some of the things that they said, and I was telling people last year, I said, Kenny Carter's the best player on their team. People talking about Angel Reese. Angel Reese, no. If you watch basketball, you know about the game of basketball. You see the on-court production. You know the stats matches the eye test. And even if the stats don't match the eye test, you can see if you're watching the eyes and if you're a really hoop head that you understand that what a player brings on the basketball court. For Angel Reese, she has a lot of leaks in her game. But on the contrary, when we look on the defensive side of the basketball, she is one of the best defenders in the game for its switchability, guarding 1 through 5, be able to stay in front of guards, using her length for us, to shot contest and block shots, getting out and shooting the gap and getting steals. Like being a post defender, she can guard damn near 1 through 5 on a basketball court. That needs to be her trade carding. That needs to be what she kind of locks in on. And hopefully they get her a guard, and hopefully she can find scenes and utilize this for different matchups to be able to be effective on the offensive side of the basketball court. I don't like her at the wing position. I'm trying to make her a wing. She's not a wing. She's never going to be like A'ja Wilson. I don't think that's the route that she has to go in. I think she has to develop to become a kind of like a Draymond Green type of player. Trade cardings, her defense, her energy, her hustle, and then you utilize her as this pick and roll playmaker at times and screener and getting easy and open looks. That's right now may have to be Angel Reese's game. That's what she may have to hone in on, and there's nothing wrong with that. She can be a all-star. She can be one of the best players in the WNBA if she just hones on of that portion of her game, if she's not going to develop offensively. But coming off last year, she was her rookie season. You saw the potential, even though the missed layups and things of that nature. But it looks like potentially if she works on her game and locks into the gym, she can be a 16 to 20-point scorer. But the problem is when you're so focused on fashion, marketability, merchandise, podcasts, all those other things, you're focused on your brand, which is important. As we know, in the NBA and the WNBA, these women are more than athletes, and that's very important. But early on, you have to focus on the actual game itself and to make sure that people are noticing you and recognizing you and want to pay attention to you for what you do on the basketball court first, because I'm telling you, things will dry up if what you're doing on the basketball court isn't matching what you're doing off the basketball court, because the league will stop promoting you. They will stop pushing you. They will stop doing these things, because right now it's the two biggest stars in the league. Of course, A'ja Wilson, of course, but last year for merchandise sales was Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. They were bringing so much attention to the WNBA. Right now, that's not the case. It's just Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, and they're trying to push this rivalry. But you can't have a rivalry when one team is more dominant, more better. Their best player is way better than the other player that you're trying to push. So it's very interesting. And then speaking of the Las Vegas Aces, they lost by an onslaught to the Valkyrie, which is crazy to me. And then I remember I got on Threads and I was talking about how Kelsey Plum is finally getting the recognition and the respect that she deserves as a first option. And people kind of got on me and said, well, she was getting the recognition she deserved with the Las Vegas Aces. I said I'm not saying that's not true, but it's different when you're the first option. It's different when you're getting the credit. It's different when people are really seeing your game. You get to put your full talent on display. And right now, that Jewel Loyal swap with Kelsey Plum has been atrocious for Las Vegas Aces. Jewel Loyal has played terrible this season. She's played horrible while Kelsey Mitchell is balling and hooping. And even in the role that Kelsey Plum was in, I said Kelsey Mitchell. Jewel Loyal has played horrible, and Kelsey Plum has played extremely well with the Los Angeles Sparks. And even on the role that Kelsey Plum is in is a first option role, and Jewel Loyal has been great in first option roles. But even in the role that Kelsey Plum used to play with the Las Vegas Aces, Jewel Loyal is now in that role, and she's struggling big time. And it's been that way all seasons. And the Aces need to figure out, if Angel Wilson doesn't have it going, you still got to utilize the other players on your team and run plays for them. Can't just be Angel Wilson and just trying to, if she's not getting it done and going, they tend to struggle offensively as well. So this Fever game was a blowout. Ari McDonald, I said it in the last stream, Ari McDonald needs to be signed for the rest of the season. She's better than Sydney Colson. Ari McDonald had 3 for 6 from the three-point line, 12 points. She plays with that grittiness, that hustle. She brings that energy. And also coming off the bench, she is a reliable person that can handle the ball. And also now when Caitlin Clark comes back, I like that when, let's say, Kelsey Mitchell goes to the bench or Caitlin Clark goes to the bench, you have another guard that can play defense, be on the perimeter, be a pest defensively, also pass the ball, and also capable at making shots. And that was something they did not have. They have their backup point guard. They have their point guard now that you can feel comfortable coming off the bench and running the show, facilitating the offense, and also scoring when they need to. But most importantly, locking in on the defensive side. She is a better player than Sydney Colson. That's not no shots against Sydney Colson, but she's been more impactful in her past 2 games this season with the Indiana Fever than Sydney Colson has all year. And Colson had a pretty decent game last game against the Chicago Sky. But Ari McDonald is here to stay, and she's going to do so much for the Indiana Fever, and they have to sign her for the rest of the season. Even if that means cutting somebody, I do not care. You have to keep her on the team. She has tremendous upside. She is a former lottery pick. Like, this is a sneaky pickup by the Indiana Fever and a great pickup by the Indiana Fever. And Caitlin Clark, who is expected to come back either Tuesday, I believe. Hopefully she does. And we're going to get to see her play with Caitlin Clark. And you're going to get to see what she brings alongside Caitlin Clark at times when Kelsey Mitchell is off the floor, because we're seeing what she brings on the court when it's just her and Kelsey Mitchell as well. Kelsey Mitchell also had a great game, 17 points. Still want to see her get going a little bit more offensively. And Aaliyah Boston had 11 points last game, and she's going to still be a much bigger factor once Caitlin Clark comes back, because we know when Caitlin Clark and Liam Boston have that pick and roll going, have that chemistry and that relationship, Boston goes from a 11 to 12 point scorer to a 16 to 20 point scorer when she has and playing alongside Caitlin Clark, which also factors in what I'm talking about with the Chicago Sky. They have no guards. They have no guards that can get their bigs the ball. They have no guards that can find their bigs in spots and get them easy and open looks. And even though Kenny Carter was not a playmaker, she drew so much attention offensively that it allowed Angel Reese to get, putbacks and sometimes easy and open looks. Now they don't respect any of those guards on the Chicago side. Atkins, they don't really respect. She was a former All-Star, 28 years old, still got some potential, but she's who she is, to be honest. They don't really respect her. Haley Van Vliet is going to be, she's a combo guard, and she's going to have now the responsibility and now probably the bulk of the minutes, which is good for her because now you get to show your potential. You get to show that you belong in the league and possibly become a starter. But now she's going to have the sole responsibility of being a playmaker and facilitating, trying to run the show. I don't think that's necessarily her true calling to be a point guard. I think she's better at being a hybrid guard, a combo guard, and playing off somebody. But we saw her when she went to TCU and she was dominating and kind of playing that role. So people have to be patient. But I think she's going to be successful because I like her game, like her competitiveness. She can make shots, and she's tough. She's tough. So this could be her opportunity to shine, and I hope she shines because I was saying like she probably should have been starting all along because the Chicago Sky team is just horrible. You might as well play your best players. Why are you waiting to just if you're already losing games and you already are, I guess they're rebuilding because it doesn't, and it's like it sucks because you're rebuilding, but you don't even own your draft pick. The Minnesota Lynx own their first round draft pick. The Chicago Sky has the potential to possibly be a top 3 pick next year. And they don't even own their draft pick. And the Minnesota Lynx, I believe, owns their draft pick, which means that the Minnesota Lynx could have a chance at Lauren Betts next year. Imagine if they get Lauren Betts to go with Courtney Williams and Nafessa Collar. Just imagine that. Like that's the potential. That's how bad the Chicago Sky are, and also that goes to show you that how bad the Dallas Wings are too, because they lost to the Chicago Sky twice. That's Enrique probably needs a new situation. They need to start building around Paige sooner rather than later. Paige has been hooping. She's been out a couple games for a concussion injury, but she's been balling. And yeah, it's a lot of storylines going on in the WNBA. And if I'm the Dallas Wings, I'm looking at trying to get possibly Aaliyah Edwards, because we know Aaliyah Edwards and Paige had that chemistry, that connection in UConn. And right now, Aaliyah Edwards, as talented as she is she's a stud. She's not playing right now with the Washington Misses because that girl Kiki Ariafin has kind of took her shine, took her role, and now it's clear that the Washington Misses are building around Kiki and Sonya. So Aaliyah Edwards is no really minutes for her, and why not try to go and get her if you're the Dallas Wings to pair with Paige Beckers, because she still has a lot of talent and she's just sitting on the bench right now. That just goes to show you how things can turn. And that's what I'm talking about with Angel Reese. It's like you got this moment now. You got the merchandise, the marketability, the WNBA to push. They're pushing this rivalry between you and Caitlin Clark and the whole Magic and Bird stuff, even though it's fake to me, because I always talk about all the off-court stuff is whatever. I talk about the on-court basketball production. I saw right through that from the get-go. But and last year was different because the on-court production was better. Angel Reese was having an historic season. She was at least putting up double-doubles. Now she's scoring 2 to 4 points, shooting 31% from the floor. She's shooting worse than she shot from the field this season in comparison to last season. People will stop caring. This is a game. Sports is what have you done for me lately? What can you do to show that you deserve to keep getting minutes? What can you do to show that you deserve to keep getting marketability? Like, that's what the league is about. We see how the NBA goes. We talk about, a lot of people talk about like the face of the league. They talk about the NBA product. They talk about the ratings. They talk about American players. Caitlin Clark right now is the biggest American player and the biggest face in hoops on the American side, at least, and even potentially globally, outside of LeBron James and Stephen Curry. But it was a time where the league and the NBA were trying to push Ja Morant, but his situation happened. They were trying to push Zion Williamson. They had a lot of stock in Zion Williamson. They were talking about him being possibly the next LeBron James for his athleticism, not game-wise, but athleticism, marketability, coming out of Duke, all the electric moments he was having. But he never quite lived up to the hype due to injuries, due to off-court issues. But that's what they were trying to push. And then you have two guys in Ja Morant and Zion Williamson that were two players that the league was really trying to push for the next best faces of the league, and especially for the American product. And even though Ja only had a situation was kind of like, just a immature situation, he's been hurt. It's not the same. It's not the same with Zion Williamson as well. So Angel Reese has to recognize that even though she hasn't had any of the type of off the court nonsense as they had, she has to recognize that people care about the on court production. People care about what you do in big moments and big games. The WNBA, casual fans, real hoop heads aren't going to care about the podcast, the fashion, the merchandise, the McDonald's meal if you're not producing on the basketball court. Because we're just going to look at you as just another player within the WNBA instead of being a star. And if the WNBA is marking you as a star and pushing you as a star, you have to at least have the on-court production to match that. And when you don't have that, and when it's teetering off and it's falling, it's going in a negative direction, not a positive direction, the league will stop caring. People will stop caring. We already got people. This is not a storyline anymore. There's no rivalry between the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever. It's just an ass beating every time. There's no rivalry between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. It's night and day. They should never be compared as basketball players again. They shouldn't have been compared in the first place because one sees schemes, one doesn't see schemes. One is a big man, one is a guard. One can control the pace of the game and control everything around the basketball court. One needs a guard to help get her opportunities, which is not her fault. She's a big man. Most bigs needs that, especially if you're a traditional big, and which Angel Reese kind of is a traditional big. But she can still be impactful. She can still be a star, but you got to work on your game. You got to make sure that you are doing the things that are going to get people to talk about you on the court first. That's what's important. And it's game 2 of the NBA Finals is today with Tyrese Halliburton and Oklahoma City Thunder. And that's another player. Like, people are talking about like superstar. Is Tyrese Halliburton a superstar? Depends on what you view as superstar. Depends on what you view a player when we talk about some of the top players in the league. Now, for his marketability, Tyrese's marketability is centered around his joyfulness. His playfulness is centered around him being this joyful player on the basketball court, very intelligent, very elite when we talk about his passing ability. So he's very corporate friendly. Like, that's his marketability. So the league can market him as a superstar like that. For his game-wise, what he does on the basketball court, he is one of the modern-day pass-first point guards in the league, and he's also a big moment player. So he's going to have big moments. He's going to have big shots. Even in the box score doesn't matches like the numbers, but you see his impact in other ways where you have to actually watch the game. So is he a superstar, what we truly think what a superstar is? No. Is he a superstar for what the league is trying to push and him having big moments and having big games? Yes, I would say that's the case. But if somebody said, give me a yes or no, is Tyrese Halliburton a superstar? I would probably say no. Can he become and continue to improve and his game continue to blossom? Yes, he can. Just like we saw SGA's game improve and develop and blossom. That's what it is. Not every player comes in and dominates the same way like a LeBron James, or dominates the same way like a Jason Tatum, or dominates the same way like a Luka Doncic. Some players come in and it takes time for them to develop, and it takes time for them to grow. It takes time for them to find their footing. And that's what's been so exciting with Tyrese Halliburton and also Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, because both of these players came in and continued to improve and work on their game. And now they've led both their teams into the NBA Finals. And for his game 2, I expect OKC to not play with their food. I expect it to be a blowout, because you don't want to get into a situation where you already allowed yourself to lose game 1 after you was up literally the entire game. You don't want to get yourself in a situation where if you're the Oklahoma City Thunder and game 2 is a close game, because now the Indiana Pacers already did what they were supposed to do and won one game on the road. But if it's a close game too and OKC barely survives, Indiana's going to start feeling herself. That confidence is going to increase. They're going back home, and they're going to have that electric crowd. Like, they're going to have that energy. And I know it's a long series. I still expect OKC to win, but OKC better not play with their food tonight. If they play with their food tonight, things can get very, very scary. I expect this game 2, to be a blowout. I expect the role players to show up for OKC. I expect Shea to have a good game. Also, I expect Jalen to be a little bit more. He has to be a little bit more consistent, because those are him having 15, 16 points and not having 20, 22 points. That's the difference between OKC winning in 5 and going 7, because his inconsistency sometimes is what hurts OKC. When SGA doesn't have a solid sidekick in games, that tends to hurt OKC, and that opens up the door for opportunities, as you saw, for games to be taken. So it's your boy, Mike K. Smith. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Also, follow me on AKISS on all the social media platforms. And always leave you out with this: faith without works is dead. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not onto your own understanding. Always acknowledge him, and he will direct y'all path. Appreciate y'all happening in the chat on my truth tellers. And I'm gone, man. Peace.